In 1967, the National Rifle Association helped write America's first modern gun control law targeting the Black Panther Party. The NRA did not just support the Mulford Act, they helped draft it, providing notes to guide the bill's language. The target was not criminals. The target was the Black Panther Party. A state senator who tried to kill the bill said that publicly. Without NRA's support, this law almost certainly would have been defeated. The Panthers were not breaking a single law. That is why the law had to be written. Before the Mulford Act, California had no restrictions on carrying a loaded firearm in public. Open carry was legal. It had been legal since statehood in 1850. Huey Newton knew that. Newton, a co-founder of the Black Panther Party for self-defense, had studied California law himself. Newton and Bobby Seale drew from Malcolm X's philosophy of armed self-defense when they found the specific statutes that permitted citizens to carry loaded weapons openly, as long as the gun was not concealed and was not pointed at another person. That was not just legal knowledge, it was a weapon. Starting in late 1966, Newton and Bobby Seale built something Oakland had never seen: armed community patrols. Panthers carried loaded shotguns and rifles in one hand and copies of the California Penal Code in the other. They followed police cars through black neighborhoods. When an officer stopped a black resident, the Panthers would stand at a legal distance, weapons visible, reciting the detained person's rights out loud. They told officers they were being watched. They told residents they did not have to answer questions. And every single time, they stayed within the law. Not one shot was fired. In all of the Black Panther Party's armed confrontations with police before the Mulford Act passed, not a single bullet left the chamber. The police could not arrest them. The Panthers had not broken any laws. That was the problem. On April 1st, 1967, a 22-year-old black construction worker named Denzil Dowell was shot and killed by a Contra Costa County deputy sheriff named Mel Brunkhorst in North Richmond. The sheriff's department said Dowell had been caught burglarizing a liquor store, ran from officers, and was hit by a single shotgun blast. The coroner's report told a different story. Dowell's body had 6 bullet holes. A doctor who examined him told the family he had been shot with his hands raised. Dowell had a bad hip from a car accident. His family said he could not run, let alone jump the fences the deputies described. No oil or debris from the junkyard he supposedly ran through was found on his shoes. An all-white jury ruled justifiable homicide in 30 minutes. The Panthers organized. They held armed rallies in North Richmond. Over 300 community members showed up. Neighbors who had never met the Panthers arrived with their own guns. One woman sitting in her car got out and held up her rifle for the crowd to see. That day, 300 people filled out applications to join the Black Panther Party. The first issue of the Black Panther newspaper was printed that month with a single headline: "Why was Denzil Dowell killed?" 4 days after Dowell's death, on April 5th, Assemblyman Don Mulford introduced Assembly Bill 1591. Mulford was a Republican from Piedmont, the wealthy white suburb tucked inside Oakland city limits. His district bordered the neighborhoods where the Panthers patrolled. He was a UC Berkeley graduate, a World War II infantry officer, an insurance broker, and the chairman of the Assembly Republican Caucus. He did not hide what the bill was for. Newton later described the radio show he had been invited to appear on, where Mulford called in during the broadcast. Mulford told Newton directly that he planned to introduce a bill that would make it illegal for the Panthers to patrol with their weapons. Newton recalled Mulford's exact words. It was a bill, he said, that would get the Black Panthers. But Mulford did not write the bill alone. This is the part most people do not know. Mulford collected intelligence on the Panthers during the drafting process. Police personnel files, internal department memos, newspaper clippings, records of Panther recruitment meetings. He was building a legislative case against one specific organization while drafting a law that would apply to everyone. And working alongside him was the National Rifle Association. In a letter defending the bill, Mulford wrote it plainly: This legislation was specifically designed with the help of the National Rifle Association. The NRA did not just nod along, they contributed drafting notes. They shaped the language, and on June 1st, 1967, Mulford testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee and confirmed the support of the NRA, the organization that today claims to be the last line of defense for Second Amendment rights, actively helped build the first major gun control law in California's history. And their reason was black people exercising those same rights. On May 2nd, 1967, 30 Black Panthers loaded their weapons, put on their leather jackets and berets, and drove to Sacramento. 24 men, 6 women. Bobby Seale led the delegation. Huey Newton stayed in Oakland. That was strategic. Newton was the thinker. Seale was the voice. Newton instructed the group to keep every gun pointed either up or down, not at anyone. He told them not to shoot unless fired upon. Lil Bobby Hutton carried a 12-gauge shotgun. Another member had a .357 Magnum. 18 other men were armed. The women were not. Eldridge Cleaver went along too, but he was not part of the delegation. Ramparts magazine had assigned him to cover the action as a journalist. He carried a camera, not a gun. That did not matter to the police later. When the Panthers pulled up to the Capitol building, television cameramen spotted them immediately. By the time Seale and the delegation reached the second floor, outside the assembly chambers, reporters were swarming. When the doors opened, several cameramen rushed onto the assembly floor to get a shot of the armed Panthers entering behind them. Seale and about 12 Panthers followed the reporters inside. The presiding officer saw the commotion and shouted for the sergeant-at-arms to clear the photographers. A guard told the Panthers they were not supposed to be there. In the confusion, an officer grabbed Lil Bobby Hutton's shotgun from behind. Hutton chased the officer into the hallway, trying to get it back. Mulford wasted no time. He rose on the assembly floor and told his colleagues that people with weapons had forced their way into the chamber. That was not true. The Panthers had followed reporters through an open door, but the framing was set. Outside, the state police surrounded the Panthers, confiscated their weapons, reviewed the situation, and returned every gun. The Panthers had broken no laws. Seale then read the Panther statement to the assembled press. Executive Mandate Number 1. He read it on the Capitol steps with cameras rolling and the nation watching. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls upon the American people in general and the black people in particular to take careful note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless. At the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people. Seale read the statement 3 times. Then the Panthers walked across the Capitol lawn toward their cars. On the way, they passed a group of schoolchildren from Valley View Intermediate School in Pleasant Hill who were having a picnic with Governor Ronald Reagan. Reagan saw the armed black men walking past. He abandoned the children and ran to his offices. The Panthers got in their cars. Police followed. At a gas station, officers surrounded the group and started making arrests on charges they pieced together on the spot. Seale was arrested for carrying a concealed pistol. The pistol was openly displayed in a holster on his hip. Television cameras caught officers measuring Panther shotguns against their own, trying to find a violation. One Panther told an officer, "That ain't no sawed-off, that's a riot gun, just like yours." They arrested 24 people, including Eldridge Cleaver, who was carrying nothing but a camera, and an anonymous black woman from Sacramento who happened to be buying gas. The original charges were dropped and replaced with conspiracy to invade the assembly chambers. Bail costs hit $40,000. Seale and several members received 6-month sentences. But here's what Mulford and Reagan didn't expect. The Sacramento action made the Panthers famous overnight. The San Francisco Chronicle ran at least 12 stories in 1 week. The New York Times covered it, the Washington Post covered it, the Chicago Tribune covered it. Television networks broadcast the footage across the country. Before Sacramento, the Panthers were a local Oakland group. After Sacramento, they were a national movement. By the end of 1968, 17 Black Panther chapters had opened across America. A young man named Billy John Carr, a former high school athlete from Berkeley who struggled to support his wife and child, joined the party right after the Capitol action. He told the New York Times why. As far as I'm concerned, it's beautiful that we finally got an organization that don't walk around singing. The Mulford Act passed the Assembly 70-5 on June 8th. It passed the Senate 29-7 on July 26. Final Assembly vote, 62-9, bipartisan. Democrats controlled the Assembly. The Senate was split. Both parties voted to disarm black citizens, exercising a constitutional right. An urgency clause made the law effective immediately upon signing. The original text of that clause cited the Panther Capital Action by name. A later draft generalized the language to reference organized groups and individuals publicly arming themselves. They took the Panthers' names out. They kept the law aimed directly at them. Reagan signed the Mulford Act on July 28, 1967. Standing in front of reporters, he said he saw no reason why on the street today a citizen should be carrying loaded weapons. He called guns a ridiculous way to solve problems that have to be solved among people of goodwill. 12 years later, in 1979, preparing to run for president, Reagan wrote a personal letter to two longtime supporters named Lorraine and Elwood Wagner. In it, he described the Sacramento events from memory. The Black Panthers, he wrote, had invaded the legislative chambers in the Capitol with loaded shotguns and held these gentlemen under the muzzles of those guns for a couple of hours. He added that the bill was introduced immediately after they left and that it was hardly restrictive gun control. Almost every detail in that letter was wrong. The Panthers were on the assembly floor for minutes, not hours. Nobody was held at gunpoint. The bill was introduced a full month before the Capitol action, not after. And the bill did not just ban guns in the Capitol. It banned open carry across California. Reagan either could not remember what happened or chose to rewrite it. Either way, the man who signed the most significant gun control law in California history spent the rest of his career pretending he did not. State Senator John Schmitz, a Republican who tried to kill the Mulford Act, wrote an editorial in the Tustin News on August 31, 1967. He wanted NRA members in California to know the truth. Their organization, despite its record of opposing gun control bills in the past, favored this bill, he wrote. And without NRA support, it almost certainly would have been defeated. Schmitz noted one more irony. The first real victim of the Mulford Act was not a Black Panther, was not a rioter, and was not a criminal. It was a Republican Party member arrested for carrying a loaded gun in his vehicle. Within a decade, the NRA reversed everything. By the mid-1970s, they began opposing all gun control legislation. In 1977, an internal coup transformed the organization into the absolutist Second Amendment lobby it is known as today. The language they adopted was almost identical to what the Black Panthers had argued in 1967. The gun is the only thing that will free us, the Panthers had said. The NRA just changed who they meant by us. The Mulford Act was not the only weapon used against the Panthers. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's COINTELPRO program was running simultaneously, using infiltrators, forged letters, and manufactured evidence to destroy the party from the inside. But the Mulford Act did something COINTELPRO could not. It made the Panthers' most effective organizing tool a crime. It did it in broad daylight with bipartisan votes and NRA backing, and it called it public safety. The Mulford Act also paved the way for the Gun Control Act of 1968, expanding federal restrictions nationwide. The Mulford Act is still on the books, California Penal Code Section 25850. It is the foundation of the state's gun laws, which are now the most restrictive in the country. And it started with one bill, drafted with assistance from the National Rifle Association, aimed at disarming black men who had not broken a single law. On January 2nd, 2026, The United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit ruled that California's ban on openly carrying firearms was unconstitutional. The case was Baird versus Bonta. Judge Van Dyke wrote the majority opinion. In it, he traced the history of California's open carry restrictions back to their origin. He described the Mulford Act as legislation tainted with racial animus. He noted that the first carry restriction California ever even proposed back in 1856 was a concealed carry ban that was intended to apply only to Mexicans. The Ninth Circuit did more than strike down a gun law. It named what the law was built on. 59 years after 30 Black Panthers walked into the California state capitol, exercising a right that was legal, the federal courts confirmed what the Panthers said that day on the Capitol steps. The legislation was aimed at keeping Black people disarmed and powerless. The case is still moving. California is appealing. It could reach the Supreme Court. The Mulford Act's core provisions remain enforceable while the courts decide. The NRA has not commented on the ruling. They have not acknowledged that the law being struck down is the same law they helped write.